Hello everybody, it's Dr. Vinay from Northwestern Hair. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the things that can go wrong during a hair transplant. Now, before we start, I want to tell you that a hair transplant is actually a very reliable and safe procedure. There are not many things that can happen during a hair transplant that will have a negative impact on you. However, your results and the planning of your transplant can have an effect across your entire life. So let's just go through all this. So number one, we're making cuts in your head. There's a risk of bleeding. Good thing you're with us for like 6 to 8 hours a day. We pretty much have control of all bleeding. I've never had a patient have a bleeding problem after their procedure, but it possibly could happen. Number two is infections. This is one thing that can be devastating to your results. If bacteria builds on these new hair grafts, they can have a hard time incorporating your body and your results will be wiped away. This is probably my number one argument about going to Turkey. Otherwise, I think the Turkey could be a good option for most, except for this. If you have an infection, it has to be treated within the first 24 to 48 hours to get a really good grasp on it. Otherwise, again, you can lose your entire procedure. In our office, we use antibiotics before and afterwards. It's not really necessary, but we're very, very cautious about infections. Number three, I would have to say this deals with your transplantation team and their experience, and that is the transection rates of your grafts. Remember, we get these grafts out using some form of a blade that follows the hair shaft down to the hair follicle. These hair follicles aren't visible at the surface, so a kind of unexperienced technician can accidentally clip the hair shaft and not get the follicle. Well, number one, when that hair is transferred, it's not going to live. You're not going to get the results you want, and that could happen up to 25% of the time. So 1/4 of your hairs could just not survive. But a good technician will transfer 95% of hairs, which is a pretty good rate. That hair or the hair follicles that's left behind can also result in ingrown hair, and cause you just kind of some discomfort or just be annoying in general after your procedure. But by far, I can say the worst thing that can happen in your transplantation is that it wasn't planned appropriately. Remember that hair loss is a progressive process, and after your transplantation, you're going to continue to have hair loss. In order to make sure your results look natural forever, you're going to want to have enough hairs in your armamentarium to correct any unnaturality. If your procedure is not planned with your future in mind, end up transplanting too many hairs in one area and running into a gap later, and moving hairs a second time is actually very difficult. So a well-planned procedure will consider all your future procedures, which means that it may not be as dense as you want it. And that's because the doctor is actually trying to make sure that you're going to have a good result forever. So those are the kind of risks involved with the transplant procedure. I would say the most important one is just poor planning. Make sure that when you see us in the consultation that we go through everything you need, and whether you choose to work with us or someone else, the last thing I want is for your procedure to not go planned correctly.